The arrest of criminals gives the victims and their families much-needed peace and justice. What comes next is sending the criminals to prisons where they can no longer harm anyone else. While many are familiar with the tough reality of prison life, some prisons are more notorious than others, and even criminals will dread being sent there. These are the 25 most inhuman prisons for kid killers. 25. Kingston Penitentiary, Canada. Kingston Penitentiary in Canada is one of the world's oldest and most notorious prisons. Located in Ontario, this maximum security prison began operations in 1835 and held inmates for a whopping 178 years before being shut down in 2013. For many years, Kingston Penitentiary was home to some of the most dreaded criminals in Canada, including women and girls. Some infamous criminals who were incarcerated in this facility include the Canadian vampire rapist Wayne Bowden, Communist Party leader Tim Buck, convicted rapist Bernie Guindon, gangster Gregory Woolley, chief mafia enforcer Howard Chard, notorious bank robber Red Ryan, and many others. Kingston Penitentiary also earned its notoriety due to housing various child prisoners. Antoine Boche, an 8-year-old, served 3 years at the facility from 1845. Another inmate, Elizabeth Breen, was only 12 years old when she was incarcerated at Kingston Penitentiary. Prisoners at KP were often subjected to harsh treatment, resulting in many escape attempts through the years. 24. Black Dolphin Prison, Russia. Russia's Black Dolphin Prison has a damaging reputation as one of the most inhumane prisons in the world due to its harsh conditions and stringent security operations. The prison is strategically located in a remote area close to the Kazakhstan border,
near the border with Kazakhstan. A prison known as Black Dolphin houses Russia's most brutal criminals.
to ensure a distinct separation from society. That's because it houses some of the country's hardened criminals.
Russia's Black Dolphin Prison houses some of the country's toughest, most violent criminals,
consisting of serial killers, terrorists, and rapists. The main theme of punishment at the Black Dolphin Prison is extreme isolation. Inmates are placed under strict rules that not only limit their contact with the outside world, but also their interaction within the walls of the prison. Prisoners carry out grueling labor, and there's been many reports of violence and abuse within the facility. 23. Camp 22, North Korea. Haengyong Concentration Camp, also known as Camp 22, is a maximum security prison facility that housed thousands of inmates. The facility is located in the remote northeastern region of North Korea, close to the border of Russia and China. It was the largest concentration camp in the country before reports of its closure surfaced in 2012. Camp 22 had a disturbing notoriety. Many of the inmates were people accused of political crimes, many of whom have been jailed with their wives, children, and other family members. The facility is heavily guarded by over 1,000 guards and 500 prison agents patrolling in shifts. The prison is also surrounded by an impenetrable fence on which sits 3,300 volts of electricity. Reports say thousands of inmates die each year, including babies that are stamped on the necks by prison guards. The camp is also believed to contain gas chambers, where chemical experiments are allegedly conducted on families. 22. ADX Florence, USA. ADX Florence is a supermax prison located in Colorado, United States. Nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies, the facility has often come under criticism for the torture treatments that inmates are subjected to.
ADX Florence, built south of Florence, Colorado in 1994, is the most secure prison in the United States prison system.
ADX Florence takes solitary confinement to a whole new level, with prisoners put under a highly restrictive 23 hours of isolation. They're allowed to exercise and carry out other activities for only 1 hour per day, and communication among inmates is to be kept at a minimum. The facility houses dangerous criminals like terrorists and organized crime leaders. Over the years, concerns have been raised regarding the effects of the harsh conditions that human rights bodies say can cause mental and psychological issues for inmates. 21. Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp, Cuba. The Guantanamo Bay Detention Camp in Cuba is known worldwide for its inhumane treatment of inmates.
Prison Camp Guantanamo, one of the most controversial places in the world.
The facility has always been a subject of criticism, controversial discussions, and human rights violations.
The Guantanamo Bay Detention Facility is one of the enduring legacies of 9/11.
Established in the year 2002, the United States reserved the camp for the interrogation and detention of suspected terrorists outside U.S. soil.
On a U.S. military base outside the reach of American civilian courts because it's not on U.S. soil.
Many of its inmates were detained without formal charges or trial, leading to years of indefinite detention. The interrogation methods have also come under scrutiny and have been regarded as torture by human rights organizations. They include sleep deprivation, isolated confinement, and waterboarding. The affairs of the prison are also largely clouded in secrecy. There is no adherence to ethical and legal standards, contributing to the facility's reputation as one of the most inhumane in the world. 20. San Pedro Prison, Bolivia. San Pedro Prison, also known as El Penal de San Pedro, is a prison like no other. Despite being the largest prison in La Paz, Bolivia, it is a society on its own and is run by inmates. The police do not interfere in the affairs of the prison, sticking to guarding the perimeter and putting a stop to occasional riots.
Inside Bolivia's San Pedro Prison, there are no guards and a hardcore population of violent and dangerous criminals.
Originally designed to accommodate 600 prisoners, it houses 3,000 who are accustomed to the self-governing nature of the prison. Inmates work within the prison, and with money earned, they buy and rent cells from other prisoners. Some that have earned enough even pay for their families to come live with them. The prison communities come in different ranges, from cheaper and more dangerous regions to high-end areas with more privacy and amenities like cable TV. However, it's also rife with common vices like fights, extortion, abuse, and drugs. 19. Rikers Island, USA. Rikers Island is the largest jail in New York City. Located on a 413-acre prison island in the Bronx's East River.
Rikers Island, New York's massive jail complex just a few miles from Midtown Manhattan.
Rikers Island was established in 1932. 85% of the inmates at Rikers Island are defendants on pretrial, and others are convicts serving short sentences. The management of the prison consists of 9,000 civilian officers and 1,500 other civilians. However, the facility is still notorious for its rampant violence, widespread physical and mental abuse, as well as neglect of inmates. Rikers Island is notoriously ranked among the worst U.S. correctional facilities. In 2015 alone, the prison saw over 9,400 assaults, including some on prison officers. The New York City Council already voted to shut the facility 2026. 18. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison was established in 1980, and it didn't take long for the facility to achieve notoriety status. As soon as the 1980s and 1990s, it had already garnered a reputation for inhumane treatment of prisoners, especially those in custody for political reasons and of Kurdish descent. The facility is extremely overcrowded with unsanitary conditions and an almost absent healthcare system that leaves inmates riddled with various untreated illnesses. Guards at the prison have been accused of regularly beating and abusing inmates, driving them into psychological distress. Inmates have frequently turned to hunger strikes and protests, but these have not yielded any result or alleviated their plight. Despite reforms by the Turkish government, Diyarbakir Prison remains one of the worst prisons in the world and a symbol of human rights violations. 17. Gitarama Prison, Rwanda. Following the new system of naming prisons based on the district they are located in, Gitarama Prison is now called Muhanga Prison. However, even the change of name isn't enough to wash off the human rights desecration that goes on in this facility. The prison is one of the most congested prisons in the country. It saw a surge in numbers following the stop of the Tutsi genocide in 1994, and its state has not improved since then. Designed to take in 600 prisoners, it is now filled to the brim with over 8,000, including babies, children, and women. The facility houses rapists, murderers, and robbers, but many of the inmates have also been detained based on vague charges. Hence, prisoners only have cramped spaces to themselves. Healthcare and hygiene are absent in the facility. Prisoners die every day, and there have been rumors of inmates surviving by practicing cannibalism within the walls. 16. Ciudad Barrios Prison, El Salvador. Ciudad Barrios Prison in El Salvador is one of the world's most inhumane prisons, thanks to its overcrowded nature.
A late-night visit in the heart of El Salvador. Telemundo cameras are given rare access to Latin America's largest prison.
Poor living conditions and gang-related activities. The thousands of inmates it currently accommodates are a far cry from the few hundred it was built for. As a result, the living conditions are nothing less than hellish, with an unsanitary environment that means many of the inmates have to live with untreated diseases. Ciudad Barrios' reputation is made worse by the constant gang wars among the inmates. Prisoners live in fear of extortion, abuse, and violence, and prison officials aren't helpful with corruption tearing through the ranks. Food, water, and healthcare are scarce, and there are virtually no forms of rehabilitation programs for the inmates. 15. Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, USA. There's a reason so many prisons are named after Alcatraz. Alcatraz of the Rockies, Alcatraz of the North, Russian Alcatraz, even Alcatraz of South Africa. The list is endless. United States Penitentiary, Alcatraz Island, also known as The Rock, is one of the most iconic prisons of all time. Alcatraz was a maximum security prison on Alcatraz Island in California, United States. The facility opened in 1934 and operated for 29 years. The federal prison, which housed some notorious criminals, crime bosses, and mafia gang members, was renowned for its tight security. Its walls were 12 feet tall with barbed wires on them. It also had multiple security layers, and if anyone escaped these, they had the shark-infested San Francisco Bay waters to contend with. Despite this, 36 inmates still tried to escape. 23 were caught, 6 were shot, 2 drowned, and 5 were missing and presumed drowned. 14. Tadmor Military Prison, Syria. Tadmor Prison in Syria is believed by some to be the worst prison in the world, and the facility has a history that matches its reputation. Located in Palmyra in the eastern Syria desert, Tadmor has an extensive history of human torture, abuse, and execution of prisoners without trial. Built by the French in the 1930s, it accommodated political criminals for many decades as they were tortured and humiliated. In the 1980s, Tadmor was the venue of a gruesome massacre that killed around 1,000 inmates after a failed attempt on President Hafez al-Assad. The prison was closed briefly in 2010, before reopening a year later to house people arrested in anti-government demonstrations. In 2015, Tadmor was captured and blown up by the Islamic State militants after releasing the prisoners. 13. La Sante Prison, France. Staying with French-built prisons, let's look at the La Sante Prison in Paris. This facility is a disturbing combination of deplorable facilities, terrible living conditions, and inhumane treatment of inmates. The prison is overcrowded, which has contributed to the appealing state of the facilities. Inmates are stuffed in cells that are never maintained, leading to a prevalence of untreated diseases and illnesses. Violence is also a common sight at La Sante. Both prisoners and guards have been attacked during many of its violent episodes. As a disciplinary measure, inmates are always subjected to prolonged confinement that affects their mental and physical well-being. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. Human rights organizations have just uncovered the existence of a notorious prison in an English-speaking country whose name is yet to be revealed. Originally designed to house 500 inmates, it is currently filled with over 3,000 prisoners who have to sleep in shifts or use makeshift spaces like hallways. This prison experiences a high rate of violence, from fights and gang activities to assaults and murders, with prison guards turning a blind eye to the mayhem. Poor sanitation, inadequate health care, and corruption are the order of the day. Even food, when available, is bad and devoid of essential nutrients. Human rights bodies are currently liaising with the country's government to close the facility or improve the conditions, and as always, we'll keep you updated with the developments. 12. Black Beach Prison, Equatorial Guinea. Black Beach Prison in Equatorial Guinea is another prison with several cases of human rights abuse. Many of the inmates are held without due process, leading to many years of detention without trial. It's another overcrowded prison that lacks sanitation and adequate medical care. Instead, the prison is home to inhumane conditions and the subjection of inmates to non-stop torture and abuse. The management of Black Beach Prison is devoid of transparency. Guards are often caught subjecting inmates to excruciating abuse with no checks and balances. International organizations have often raised concerns regarding the facility with no improvements in sight. 11. Carandiru Penitentiary, Brazil. Carandiru Penitentiary was a notorious prison located in São Paulo, Brazil. It was built in 1920, but started taking in inmates in 1937. It used to be the largest penitentiary in South America, accommodating 8,000 inmates. The facility was plagued by poor living conditions for the inmates, with many carrying illnesses, like AIDS. On the 2nd of October, 1992, a prison riot broke out between two gangs at the facility. Over 1,000 inmates rioted for 3 hours, attacking one another with pipes and knives. The 15 guards present quickly lost control, and the Brazilian military police were invited to restore order. At the end of the riots, 111 prisoners were killed and 37 were injured. With pressure from the international community as a result of the massacre, Carandiru Penitentiary was eventually demolished in December 2002. 10. Bang Kwang Central Prison, Thailand. Bang Kwang Central Prison in Thailand is also known as Big Tiger and Bangkok Hilton. But don't be tricked by the nickname. The facility offers no form of comfort for its inmates. Instead, it's a notorious prison with a reputation for overcrowding, which means prisoners get cramped into tiny cells. Opened in 1933, it is a maximum security prison that currently houses over 6,000 inmates. The prison is synonymous with harsh conditions, with many of its prisoners being foreigners and indigenes on death row and those with long sentences. On arriving at the facility, inmates' legs are shackled for the first 3 months of their stay. Death row inmates used to have permanent leg shackles, but this practice was abolished in 2013. However, the harsh conditions persist in a prison that has been described as hell. 9. Gldani Prison, Georgia. Gldani Prison in Tbilisi, Georgia, gained worldwide attention in 2012 when a scandal rocked the Georgian prison system. Several videos that surfaced online showed the prison guards torturing and sexually abusing inmates at the facility. The scandal underscored the inhumane treatment directed towards prisoners and the horrible conditions they had to live in at the facility. Even before the scandalous clips made their way online, inmates at Gldani never had it easy. The number of inmates increased drastically from 6,000 in 2003 to 24,000 in 2012. Not only did this give rise to a deplorable state of affairs in prison, but it also coincided with the appalling treatment of inmates who were shocked, burnt, gagged, and blindfolded, among many other ill treatment. 8. Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison, Nigeria. Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison is the most notorious jail in Nigeria. Located in Lagos State, the commercial capital of the country, it was established in 1955 with a capacity of a little over 1,000. However, the prison houses close to double its capacity, including some inmates on death row. Due to Nigeria's deficient legal system, around 70% of the inmates are awaiting trial. Overcrowding is a major problem at the facility, which has contributed to the issues of hygiene and inadequate medical facilities. It is also underfunded by the Nigerian government, with inmates having access to only $1 worth of food per day as of 2021. While reports suggested the amount was doubled, those who spend time at the prison revealed that's not the case. They also claim they eat only one type of food every day, and the meals aren't even cooked properly. 7. Butyrka Prison, Russia. Butyrskaya Prison, popularly known as Butyrka, is a Russian prison located in central Moscow. Opened in 1771, the red brick Butyrka is still the largest remand prison in Moscow, but it is battling overcrowding. While the state of the prison is deplorable, Inmates at the facility are not allowed to protest, and any attention of such is met with violence by guards. The prison consists of political prisoners and people on death row. At a time, the facility held close to 20,000 inmates, and many political detainees were shot after investigation. The state of overcrowding at the jail is a worry. Reports say cells designed to contain 10 prisoners are crammed with 100. As a result, many of the inmates have contracted tuberculosis, AIDS, and other illnesses. 6. La Sabaneta Prison, Venezuela. Maracaibo National Prison, also known as La Sabaneta, is a notorious holding facility in the state of Zulia, Venezuela. During its 55 years of operation from 1958 to 2013, it was overcrowded with limited to no access to basic amenities like food, water, and health care. Violence was the order of the day among prisoners, and sections of the prison were controlled by gangs. Despite being designed to house only 700 inmates, held 3,000 more, with some of them being children of the inmates. A violent riot broke out in the facility in 1994 after a gang started a fire and attacked inmates as they tried to escape. 150 prisoners were lost to the mayhem and the resulting attempt of the officials to take back control. Other riots have also happened at the facility among gang members who have firm control of the lightly guarded prison. Raids on the prison have led to the recovery of weapons, drugs, and animals, including some endangered species. 5. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. Mendoza Prison in Argentina is synonymous with horrific scenes. Torture, humiliation, and even death are common in the facility designed to house 600 criminals. The reasons could be traced to the fact that it currently holds 1,000 more convicts than it's built for, which has led to a limited supply of essential materials. While many of the inmates are awaiting trial, they are not spared from the grueling conditions of the facility, and they usually leave having experienced some unspeakable horrors. Human rights organizations have spoken out against the appalling condition, but there's been no change. The situation is worsened by corruption among the guards. 4. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison in Nairobi, Kenya, began operations in 1955 under the administration of Kenya Prison Service. The facility held many political criminals in the 1980s and 1990s, including Raila Odinga, Hussein Onyango Obama, Kenneth Matiba, and Koigi wa Wamwere. Kamiti is the site of multiple executions, including Hezekiah Ochuka, Pancras Oteo Okumu, and Mau Mau rebel leader Dedan Kimathi, who was hanged by the British colonial administration in 1957. The condition of the prison is poor, with no water supply and prisoners more than double the original amount it was built for. A cholera outbreak in 2009 led to the death of 8 prisoners. 3. Tihar Jail, India. Tihar Prisons is an Indian prison complex in Delhi. It is one of the largest in the country, with 9 functional prisons built on a 400-acre land. Opened in 1957, the prison was designed to accommodate 5,200 inmates, but the current population is over 14,000. The overcrowded nature of the prison has led to a generally poor living condition due to limited resources. Inmates are cramped in small spaces, and the basic amenities like food, water, and medical facilities usually do not go around. The facility is also experiencing a high rate of HIV-positive inmates, with 6 to 8% of the inmates affected. Some notable prisoners at Tihar include Indian-born American Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee, Sanjay Gandhi, politician Anubrata Mondal, gangster Chota Rajan, wrestler Sushil Kumar, and international serial killer Charles Sobraj. 2. Buen Prison, Colombia. Buen Prison in Bogotá, Colombia, is a female prison whose condition makes it one of the worst in the entire world. It currently houses around 2,000 women, despite being designed to accommodate much less. The environment is a serious hazard, with many of the inmates contracting several diseases that never get treated. One healthcare officer is available, but they have no specialist qualification to check some complex conditions relating to women. Food and water are scarce. The women get only 10 sanitary towels every 3 months, forcing them to use unsanitary materials that could cause infections. The The only support the women get is the solidarity and emotional support that exist among inmates. The Colombian government has organized reforms aimed at improving the condition, but funding is usually not available, and bureaucracy causes further delays. 1. Red Onion State Prison, USA. Red Onion State Prison is a supermax correctional facility located in Wise County, Virginia. The prison accommodates around 800 prisoners after its opening in 1998. It is managed by the Virginia Department of Corrections, and most of the inmates are prisoners sentenced by the Virginia legal system, even though it contractually accepted inmates from other states at some point. The prison is reserved for the worst of criminals, and some were sent there after going out of line at other facilities. 45% of the inmates are not serving up to 15 years. As for others, they range from 15 years to life. Some popular inmates incarcerated at the facility include convicted murderer and activist Joseph Giarratano and Lee Boyd Malvo, the Beltway sniper. The prison is known for its harsh treatment of inmates, with more than 2/3 of inmates being held in solitary confinement. Designed to limit interactions with guards or other inmates, they are kept in 8 by 10-foot cells for 23 hours, with only a tiny window for light. Human rights organizations have raised multiple concerns about the state of prisoners at Red Onion. They allege racism, violence, and inhumane conditions. There have also been reports of mental illnesses due to solitary confinement, illegal usage of firearms on prisoners, prisoners being bitten by dogs, and being strapped to the bed for days, among other forms of terrible treatments. Prison life is supposed to be a place of rehabilitation for criminals, but that is hardly the case for many of these notorious facilities. The inmates face unimaginable hardships that leave even the most dangerous criminals having a rethink of their lives. Thanks for watching today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Did we miss any prison? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one.